Back to the AM Weekend Show, and like I promised, we're going to be talking about business. We'll be delving into the world of business, and we're going to be looking at the Southeast Business and Investment Summit. Of course, the Southeast Business and Investment Summit is fast approaching, promising to address some of the most important pressing challenges facing businesses in the region. So today we're going to be exploring how this event could be a game changer for the business community in the southeastern part of Nigeria and in Nigeria at large, I believe. And joining us for that conversation is Dr. Ofediora Amobi, an economist. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you so much. You look dashing, by the way.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. I like how Nigeria's problem is not affecting you. I mean...
No. You try not to make it affect you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about the Southeast Business and Investment Summit.
Yes, it's actually it's an event that is happening next week. It has been planned for quite a number of months. So many stakeholders have been reached out to over this period of time,
Okay.
both in the private and the public sector, to participate and support the summit. It's like the name implies, business and investment summit, which, the key aim basically is to attract investment into the Southeast, to grow the economy of the Southeast, and to improve on what we have and what we're doing right now in terms of trade, commerce, agriculture, manufacturing, etc. The focus areas of the summit will be predominantly agriculture, manufacturing, food security, etc. And the summit is holding next week from the 11th, Wednesday, to the 13th of December at the Amadeo Center here in Enugu.
Oh. All right. So I want to know what inspired this move. What inspired you to... Are you the founder?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
But you're part of them.
I'm part of, yeah.
Okay. So what inspired this move? Getting up one day and saying we're going to organize a summit for business people, business owners. What inspired it?
Well, typically you notice a gap. What we do, some of the decisions we make are based on some type of a gap or a need that exists that we want to fill. Historically, and the Southeast at one point in time in the 50s and 60s was one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing economy in the world, the economy of the Southeast, back in the day. And we have gone through that period, developed. Unfortunately, we had, some setbacks, which included the Civil War, etc. And it took us, almost 50 years to get to where we are now.
Okay.
And so what inspired us now is that, well, if we had done it before, we can do it again. And this time around, we're going to take, lessons that we've learned from the previous period and apply it to this time. So a number of things that we want to do, and that's why it is tagged Remaking the Southeast, because we want to now project the Southeast as an economic powerhouse. Now bring it back to its, glory days.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the focus will be on trying to achieve a number of objectives. First and foremost would be to attract investment into the Southeast. And by attracting investors, Southeastern business people who are here in the Southeast, to how to increase their own holdings. Southeasterners residing outside the Southeast, and then non-Southeasterners, or what we now call the international, investors. So we have the local investors, we have the Southeasterners in diaspora, and then the international non-Southeasterners.
Okay.
So if we can bring them in, that will also, help. That's one of the objectives that we want to achieve. And so another one actually is to see how we can, bring our businesses together by developing partnerships amongst the various participants. Because the summit is going to attract business people and investors from various sectors, there is a likelihood, and one of the things we want to encourage is that the business people meet each other, partner with each other, and that could save them, millions of naira in terms of either, suppliers or distributors, etc., within their own business value chain. And so that's another objective. Another thing that actually inspired us to do this was that we realized that the Southeast small businesses, most especially the micro and the small and medium enterprises within the Southeast, are still not taking full advantage of financing out there.
Yes.
Unlike our own counterparts in the South, Southwest, and even other parts, of the country. As much as we are quite enterprising, we are very, very one man, I'll do it myself type business people.
Yes.
And so we are trying to dispel that. And we're hoping that one of the drives for this summit would be to attract up to $1 billion, create an investment fund of up to $1 billion targeted, specifically towards the small and medium enterprises so that they can take advantage of that and grow, because you can remain a small mom and pop business for the next 30 years, or you can borrow and increase your asset base.
Okay.
Pay it back. And then, you become, you actually transcend from micro to small, from small to medium, from medium to large. And that's the way economies grow.
So now that you mentioned this, now that you mentioned this, I just got curious for a bit because I've interacted with a lot of small scale businesses and startups. And I'm surprised to hear you say that they are not taking advantage of the available finances. Meanwhile, I've heard more complaints about these finances not being available.
Exactly.
Not being available to them. I see people try to apply for grants. Sometimes you apply, you don't get anything. Sometimes you don't even know where to find the grants and all of that. That's for grants too. And then when we now talk about borrowing, when we talk about loans now, you find out that some businesses are even too small to think of borrowing. I don't know how we're going to address that. Of course, that's why you're here. There are small businesses who think about loans and they get scared because sometimes, most times it takes a level of confidence to go for loans. When you there are levels you'll be in as a business person that you don't have that kind of confidence to go for a loan, no matter how productive you think you are. So how do we address that fear? What if I borrow and this whole borrowing just brings down my business entirely? Because there are two things involved when you borrow. It's either you multiply your production and you make more money, you're able to pay back and continue, or you just go bankrupt in the whole process.
Right.
So how are we going to address this?
Well, okay, a number of ways. Typically, when we use the word borrowing, people think about banks. So for the small businesses, they're thinking, how do I now go to the bank? How do I fulfill all those requirements? How do I do the paperwork? So there's that mind block first and foremost from that. So when you're talking about financing, they're like, let me, just do it on my own and play safe.
Yes.
Like you said, and not drown in debt. However, there are funds out there from the central bank that are even specified or specific, geared towards specific sectors of the economy. There's a NIRSAL, NIRSAL, that's geared towards agriculture for, agricultural startups. If you want to do snail farming, piggery, whatever it is, those funds are there. And a lot of them are actually grants that are even interest free. Some have very, very minimal interest because the whole idea is to encourage the startups and grow the sector. There are the SMEDAN also has its own small funds that have very little interest that they can take advantage of. So it's not just going to the big commercial banks that will charge you a high rate, and of course you can't fulfill all the requirements because what they're asking for is that. Then there is also this thing about small businesses not wanting to disclose their financials for tax purposes and other reasons.
Yes, very important, especially now.
Especially now that tax is increasing.
Exactly. So when you tell them about external financing, you know,
They want to place
yeah,
it.
the tendency is like, let them just keep, you know, keep that money there. However, another objective that the summit wants to achieve is to establish training channels for these small businesses.
Okay.
I wanted to ask that.
And part of those training channels, you know, would be to create or to even support existing business development organizations within the Southeast. So you have BDOs that already exist here. There are not too many of them compared to the numbers in the Southwest. I mean, Lagos alone has like BDOs all over the place. But if we can use this summit and channel some of the funds into supporting the BDOs and train the BDOs, these business development organizations are the ones that will now go and handhold those small enterprises and point to them where these fundings are, help them fill out the forms, you know, help them put together a business plan, package their facility for them, for the banks. Because another thing you also notice is that some of these small enterprises, the owners are rich, but not very well educated.
Yes.
And so, even those who are educated might not be aware that these things exist here and there. So the BDOs are there to, you know, guide them and handhold them and then train them into doing all that. So it's not just for financing. It's also for even growing their business, creating, you know, developing a strategy for them that will help them grow, that will help them find new markets for their products, that will help them, you know, perfect their own accounting procedures, that would also help them know more about ethics and the legal aspects of business.
Okay.
So BDOs play, you know, a key role across board. And that's one of the things that, you know, the summit wants to achieve. And so in addition to, it's not just saying, okay, here's $1 billion. If that can, you know, that target can be met, you don't just throw it at them. You want to make sure that, you know, there's value added as you go on the way.
That's pretty much interesting because I wanted to ask, because we've seen so many summits here and there within the year, and at the end of the day, even when these grants are given, they don't make good use of it. It does not, at the end of the day, we don't really achieve anything. It's just more like that. So it's very interesting that we have this training and a follow up too.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Okay, so I'd like to know, since we've addressed financing, we've addressed money matter, are there other, I mean, if one is to meet you and ask you, what is the major, or what are the major challenges that businesses in the Southeast are facing? Specifics now, what are the major challenges that businesses in the Southeast are facing? What would you say? What challenges would you point out? And how, of course, how is the summit going to solve them, apart from the financing, since we've discussed that?
Okay. Thank you. Now, taking financing aside, there are major infrastructural challenges. Excuse me. Small businesses going from their small factory to the market, roads, bridges, you know, power, you know, all these things are infrastructural challenges. Having to provide their own power, having to even build their own, you know, their own roads out of their factories, having to provide their own water, having to provide their own security. I mean, there's so many things that add to their cost that if those things were available, they could, you know, even grow at a, you know, faster rate or scale than that. Then you have multiple taxes. The average small business person or any business person who wants to move their goods from here in Enugu to Aba has to go through 1,001 checkpoints.
Yes.
If it's not police, it's this. If it's not that, it's the local government, it's a task force, it's all sorts of characters along the road that impede or discourage them. So these are some of the challenges that they face. And then, of course, we've talked about, you know, training, you know, not being aware that certain things exist that will help them grow their business, or not even knowing where the market is. You know, you can be producing something and not knowing that there's even a big consumption base on this part of town. Meanwhile, you're taking your goods there
Yes.
and building up, inventory,
Yes.
and the goods are not moving. But if you had just looked here, if a BDO had actually helped you do some type of a feasibility study to point you to where the target market is, that will help. I mean, there's so many other challenges that.
All right.
Yeah.
So you talked about remaking the Southeast. That's exactly what we are talking about in this summit. Now, there is this speculations, or there is this thing going on that the Igbos or the Southeast take the market away from the Southeast. They go to build other nations, other states, other nations and all that. So what is this summit going to talk about, this particular challenge, and it kind of bring back, just like you said, the Southeast economy was one of the biggest during old times. So is this summit going to talk about bringing back that glory?
Yes. It's all part of redeveloping the Southeast to be that economic powerhouse. Let me say. Even when the economy of the Southeast was the fastest growing in the world, Southeasterners still had investments outside the Southeast. So we're not saying close down your shops in Lagos or in Kano or in South Africa and bring them back home. What the summit is going to achieve, or at least try to achieve, would be to say, okay, you have so much out there. If you can just take 5-10% of it and start, let's call it a branch, in the Southeast. For each one that is opened, people get employed, jobs are created. And so the more they can do that, I'll just take, 2 businesses now.
Okay.
I won't use Innocent because he's already, already here. Take, for example, what Koscharis did. Koscharis started his business, grew his empire in Lagos and other places. But a few years ago, he decided, okay, I want to set up a rice processing plant. Whatever percentage of his total assets he used to set it up, he decided to bring it to the Southeast. Now, Koscharis is one of, the big rice processing plants here, employing hundreds of people, right? So nobody said, shut down your Koscharis motors, etc. But just try and diversify into the Southeast. There are so many opportunities here. Yes, we also have our challenges, insecurity and the rest of them. But, excuse me, those things can be overcome. They're not insurmountable. And so, if, our entrepreneurs can start thinking like that and start bringing things back down here, I mean, it can go a long way. I was talking to a businessman who said, yes, I can do that. And I can write it off.
Okay.
So you say, okay, 5% of my holdings, I bring it down to the Southeast, but I write it off as a loss.
Oh, okay.
But if it now becomes a big empire, yippee. If I lose, I've already written it off in my books.
Okay.
So we actually need to work on our mindset as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's an interesting one. Go on.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so yesterday at Nkata at Center for Memories, we're talking about this Akurolo thing a lot. And this is the first time I'm hearing something different. He is not saying bring everything down. He's saying by the time you've diversified, you can now bring a little down here. And just like you mentioned, this guy that said, okay, I'll consider it.
I'll write it off.
So I think we still need some clarity in all this. Because if we're going to wait for people who have grown big enough to now diversify and bring their 5 to 10% here, we might have to wait for a very long time. And if you've been following the trends on Twitter, you see the Yoruba Igbo clashes going on. You see the Lagosians saying, go away. This is not your place. Why are you building another man's land? Okay, you said that you are the one building us. Okay, go so that we can, continue surviving. Go and do the same in your Southeast if you think that you're capable of doing it. So, a lot of things are already scary for business people over there who are outside the Southeastern part of Nigeria. So if we have to wait for everybody who grows big to start diversifying, for those now who are not that big and then go to Lagos because opportunities seem to be, greener there, the pastures are greener. So you go there and you start building. at the end of the day, won't you simply just build Lagos again? Won't you simply just build that place again? Maybe so to a point where you are big enough to develop another man's land, yet not big enough to bring 5% or 10% here. So at the end of the day, a lot of people are still going there. And it's only a few that grow big enough to the point where they can now bring a little back. Right. How would you address that?
Well, I never said we have to wait for everybody to bring the 5% back.
Okay.
What I said was that even when we were the fastest growing economy in the world, we were still investing outside.
Okay.
Yes. So now we have MSMEs here locally that are growing, and we want to actually encourage so that they can, they can grow and also diversify within or outside the Southeast. The same way, we're also encouraging those who have done so already to now think back.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, the think back philosophy, Akulwelno. So we're saying, yes, you have this big empire in South Africa. You're the, whatever it is, one of Malaysia, right? Whatever it is you're doing there, think of that 10, 15, 20, 100 people that you can employ, which will go a long way in curing some of the social ills, because people have nothing to do, so they take up, these vices. Now, if you do that, that will go a long way. On the other hand, we're also encouraging governments of the state to invest in the infrastructure that will bring them back. Okay. Now, Anambra State, for instance, is planning to build an industrial city. Okay. Abia has the Enyimba Industrial City that is, also coming up. There are, Enugu is also trying to do, the Lion Business City. And so is Imo and Ebonyi. Now, when these things are put together, it makes it a lot easier for some of those businesses there to now come back, because now you have that infrastructure, you have, the power, you have the road, you have the water that's already been put in place. So you're not just coming back to start buying land, to start, going through the whole process. Okay. Yes, these industrial parks and industrial cities already exist for you to come in and start your 5 or 10%.
Great, great. So I would like to ask, this is the first edition of this summit.
Well, there was I don't know what I would call it, a full summit like this one, but there was a summit that was held last year in Owerri. Okay. Where, which was actually well attended also, the one that Dr. Ndojokonjiwala gave her, speech and all that. So we're taking a lot of what came out of that one.
Okay.
Into this one.
Into this one.
Yeah. Because one thing about summits is that you don't just want it to be talk shops. You also want to take the lessons learned, put them into an implementation agenda, assign them to the various states and governments, monitor them, so that at the next summit, you'll be able to say, yes, by this time last year, these are the things, these are some of the targets you wanted to achieve. This is how well you have done. And it becomes a way of, of checking progress.
Checking them.
Yeah.
That's very, very, very good. I feel like everything is already planned, and it's very interesting that it is so. So who are the people that can participate? Is it for every business person, or there's a kind of registration attached to it?
Well, yes, you have to register, but it is for every business person. There's a website that has where you can click to register for attendance and participation, so on. But I mean, we anticipate that we're going to have over 600 active participants and another 600 to 800 attendees. So for the 3 days. And it's going to bring in people from the diaspora, who is who in business and industry and government, as Ndibo in Southeast, and even non-Southeasterners, yes.
Right. So say it's open to every business person.
Pretty much, yes.
So can you share the website to go so if anybody that wants to register?
Yes, it is. I think it's www. Southeast. It's actually a long The southeastinvestmentsummit.com. But
Okay.
yeah,
Or if there is a social media platform
platforms will
so that
work.
people can use.
exactly. I mean, I will confirm. I'm not
Okay,
much
no
towards
problem.
That's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
It's okay, it's very
That's okay. But to
Right.
be sure, the date is
The date is 11th to the 13th,
Okay.
and it's at the Amadeo
Event
Center.
Center.
Yes, here in Enugu.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think this is very innovative, and I think
Yes.
this is something that no business person should miss.
Mm.
I should be there. Ogochukwu, what about you?
I would like to be there as well.
You're a business person, no? We'll be there. We'll be there.
I know Afiati will be there.
Yeah, no, I think
Definitely.
we
That's
will
how
be
we
there.
know.
We're
It could be
definitely
there,
going to be
but
there.
Yeah. So
Yes.
you guys are also invited on your own SME
Level.
Yeah.
I'm going to come. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you
You're
so much,
welcome.
sir.
Thank you for having me.
That was Dr. Ofediora Amobi, an economist and, of course, one of the organizers of the Southeast Business and Investment Summit. That is an event that I expect you to plan towards being in attendance, because if you're a business person, and I mean, if you're going through, if you're seeing what Nigeria is seeing, you know that you're not supposed to just keep quiet and do nothing about your business. You're a startup, you're an SME, whatever it is, at what level, at whatever stage of business that you're in, I recommend this event coming up on the 11th to the 13th at Amadeo Event Center. Don't miss out. You'll also find me there. Up next on the AM Weekend Show is, we're going to be taking a trip to the world of social media, after which we'll have our exclusive interview with the star of the day, someone you do not want to miss out on. I'm not going to be letting the cat out of the bag, and that is a sign that you should stay with us. We'll be right back.